Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Jennifer Sullivan, the Principal Advisor with J. Sullivan Advisors. This is our 15th Brain Break, and this time we are featuring a gentleman named Dick Finnegan. I'm so excited to introduce you to him. Our hope with this Brain Break series is to give you about 30 minutes where you can just slow down, stop taking care of things and other people, sit back, relax, and lean into something that maybe you haven't thought about before. And this time it's employee retention. It's such a hot topic right now. Before I introduce you to Dick, let me tell you a little bit about J. Sullivan Advisors. We are a boutique hospitality consultancy serving business solutions to hospitality owners and complete event management services to companies of any size, associations, or any type of group meeting professionals as well. In this capacity, we can do anything that's needed, from site selection of your next venue to sourcing, to contract negotiations, full event production, or just on-site staffing. We can handle the entire project or just pieces of it, whatever you need. And I think there are two main things that make J. Sullivan Advisors different than other independent planners or incentive houses. Like other independent planners, we are high touch and low overhead, which means we can pass the savings along to you, but we're not independent. We are a team. So you've got someone standing behind your lead planner at all times. There are 6 of us on this team, and that gives you the peace of mind and assurance that someone's always going to be available, even in the case of injury or illness or anything else unexpected. The second thing that makes us different is the dynamic makeup of our team. We are a combination of seasoned and savvy meeting planners with Sharon Chapman, formerly with Guardian, Jana Stern, formerly with Voya, and Tonine McGarvey, formerly with BMW in Mini. The rest of our team are experienced luxury hoteliers, including Michelle Babin, Joanne Peart, Kelly Woods-Dahmer, and myself, all coming from the Ritz-Carlton Hotel team. We all collaborate, as I said, on every single program. So we are bringing our different experiences and perspectives to your program, making it that much more successful. Collaboratively or collectively, we are all passionate about travel. We are passionate about building loyalty through events, and we're passionate about taking care of other people, be it your stakeholders, your attendees, or even you. That's our job. So we would certainly love to put our passion and experience to work for you. So the next time you have a program that you need assistance with, please keep us in mind. And I'll reach out in the next couple of days. So you've got my contact information, and I look forward to keeping in touch. So now, without further ado, if I can ask Dick to join us. As I said, this topic of the Great Resignation is a hot one. You know, since Dick and I started talking, I hear different statistics every day. I think the one that blew me away the most was that 95% of all current employees are open to changing jobs right now. And while everyone's talking about hiring, what a critical issue that is, no one's really talking about retention, which is where Dick comes in. You know, he's considered the retention expert or turnover expert. He has reduced turnover by over 30% in all different industries: manufacturing, logistics, distribution centers, call centers, all industries across all 6 continents. So Dick, you've got some experience in this, and we cannot wait for you to share your wisdom with us. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, Jennifer. Great intro. Hi, everybody, and welcome. And we have a few minutes today during which I'm going to pack in some information. I'm going to tell you precisely how to cut employee turnover by 30% and more. And yes, even during these times when it seems impossible. In fact, as Jennifer was talking about that 95% figure, I was thinking like this, that so many companies are recruiting and recruiting and recruiting without consideration for retention, in part because they're too busy recruiting. But the other piece is they really don't know what retention is. They're thinking, well, we have to pay more money. How much money can we pay? We need to have Employee Appreciation Week. We need to do exit interviews, all these traditional things. But many of these companies, and think about if this applies to your company, are in the doom loop. And the doom loop is you hire people and 60 days later you're replacing them, and 60 days later you're replacing them, and you can't grow your staff. You're just trying to keep bodies afloat, untrained bodies. So what I'm going to do is share my screen, first of all, and introduce this presentation to you, and I'm trusting you can all see it well, and walk you through some data and solutions. Now, I had a decision to make. Given the amount of time we had, the decision was, do I do 5 slides and stay at a high level and talk about things in a broad way, or do I drill down and go deep? And I decided to drill down and go deep. And that just means for you, I'm going to go fast. But I don't think I know. I'm a therapist, by the way, by training, and I know that people think faster than most people talk. So let me fly here and share some information. So Jennifer said cut turnover 30% and more. So that's real. I could tell you stories about these and many others. Manufacturing is Caterpillar, nurses is a hospital in Indiana, call centers is Hilton, meat processing is in Wisconsin, distribution centers is in Illinois, on and on and on. Big companies, FedEx, Bank of America, Caterpillar, not so big companies, but this is all we do. And the way we do it is, first of all, see a bunch of books. I've written all these books. The book on the right, The Power of Standard Views, happens to be the top-selling book in history for SHRM, the Global HR Society. And Forbes writes, in fact, yesterday, Forbes just published an article about me and our work. So Forbes writes about us several times a year. Business Week has written about us. But here's the key word. There's too many words on this slide. See this word down here, science. So here's the science part. As I said, I'm a therapist by training. I got into HR by accident. Many of us do. So I'm a recovering HR director. And I learned a lesson when I was in HR about employee retention, and it made me get other companies where I worked. So I have worked in bizarre places. I have worked in Siberia to cut employee turnover. I have been 4 kilometers deep in a gold mine in Africa to cut employee turnover for AngloGold Ashanti, the biggest gold mining company in the world. 60 Minutes said last year that's the deepest man-made hole on Earth. And it's a 40-minute elevator ride to get down there with no walls on the elevator. There's stone outside the elevator. I have done 2 lecture series tours across China to train executives of Chinese companies, German companies, and American companies on how to cut employee turnover. I've been commissioned by the CIA to cut CIA turnover. I've had clearance. I've been to Langley many times. So I've done all kinds of things. And in the course of all that, I got asked by a publisher to write a book. I said, well, what a great idea. They said 70,000 words. I freaked out. And ultimately, I contacted a professor of industrial psychology who had an interest in turnover. His name's Murphy. My name's Finnegan. We say it was probably St. Patrick's Day. And I did postgraduate work exclusively on how to cut employee turnover. My goal was to know more about this one skinny subject than anyone on earth. So the science part here is that I've actually academically studied this. And the outcome is I'm going to tell you 5 ways to cut turnover. And I would bet you a lot of money, $15, that none of you can guess one of them. That's my guess, okay? So given all that, we did a survey, and most of you participated in our survey. And we asked 3 questions. 1 to 10 scale on difficulty of finding new employees. The average score was 8. Has turnover decreased, increased, decreased, stayed the same in the last year? 3 out of 4 of you said it's increased. Turnover solutions, most common ones were money, benefits, recognition, flexibility, communication. And I'm going to tell you, get ready for this, they're all the wrong answers. Every one of those is what companies think is the right answer. When I show you the research part, the scientific piece, it's really not the right answer. So why do I say that? First of all, let me just tell you, if you don't know this, we all know lots of people are quitting, but historically, If you go to 2009, when we came out of the recession, 16% of US employees quit. The more jobs there were, unemployment went down, the more people quit. We got up here to 2019, thought we were at the all-time high. The pandemic hit, we dipped a little bit. But here in 2021, through the first 6 months, we are blowing the doors off of quitting. And there's all kinds of theories about why people quit. And I'm not going to invest time in the theories. I'm going to invest time in how to fix it. But how many times can you say unprecedented? We've never seen anything like we're seeing now. And if somebody said to me, when will it get better? I'd say, I don't know. I have no idea. And it's my job to do this stuff. I see reports every day. I read economic reports. There's no sign the economy is going to get blown out of the water. There's no sign people who stopped working are going to come back and work. There's no sign anybody wants to work in a restaurant. And anytime you hear jobs like infrastructure, you hear politicians talk about more jobs. Well, that's good for the people who have the jobs. That's not good for us who are finding people. Look at the statistic here in the box. Young US workers hold 10 to 14 jobs by age 38. That's with different companies. That was before the pandemic. It's got to be worse now. So not good news. We better get savvy. We better have an answer. Now, I want to tell you about lots of data on this slide. I want to cut to the quick and tell you what it means because it's relevant to what we're talking about. Gallup has been measuring employee engagement for 21 years, since 2000. Employee engagement has many definitions. The simple one is employees give their best every day. In 21 years, green means engaged. That brown taupe color in the middle means not engaged. Not sort of, kind of, maybe, but they ain't. The orange on the right are actively disengaged. Gallup has clever nicknames. The middle group they call sleepwalkers, barely doing what they have to do to get by. The right group are sabotagers. They are subtracting from productivity. You would fire them in a heartbeat if you identified them. The outcome obviously is there's micro changes, but for the most part, for 21 years, a third of US workers give their best, 2/3 dog it. That's the outcome on engagement. That's really what you need to know. But the punchline is that Deloitte, if you look here at the bottom right of the slide, says US companies spend $1.5 billion each year to improve engagement. How can we flush $1.5 billion and get nothing back? That's the big question, and I'm going to answer the question. So if you only remember one thing I say, this is it. The number one reason employees stay or leave, or for that matter, engage or disengage, is how much they trust their immediate supervisors. That's the deal. There are over 35 studies that back this. And if you have one hammer to hit one nail, this is the nail you better hit to cut turnover. As much as people think money matters, it matters to get people in the door. But when you hear people are quitting for $1 an hour, they're not quitting for the money. You hear people are quitting for $5 an hour, maybe they're quitting for the money. But there's such confusion between money and how it impacts turnover. It impacts it if there's a big change, but otherwise it just becomes an excuse for getting away from a jerk boss. Now, why do I say, and I said 35 studies, I want to show you just two fast. Global consulting firm named Connexa interviewed 1,000 people who recently quit their jobs voluntarily, asked 5 questions. Pay, benefits, development, advancement, relationship with your boss on a 5-point scale. Got the results. The more you liked your boss, the more you liked your pay, benefits, development, advancement. If you thought your boss was a jerk, you don't like your pay, benefits, development, or advancement. They got the straight flush. It's the only correlation they found. They wrote at the end of the study, offering a higher salary or developmental/advancement opportunity may not be enough to retain employees. But I would have written it this way. As an author, I would have said it this way. The prism or the lens through which employees see their supervisors is how they see their companies. They live in small worlds, and that's how they think about staying or leaving. One other study, you remember here, green is good, orange is really bad. So Gallup did a study where they said, my manager and I have one of the strongest personal relationships in my life. Blows my mind they would say strongest personal relationships, but they did. And the outcome was on a 5-point scale for the engaged, the people we got to keep. 16% scored their boss a 5, 16 a 4, 33 a 3, 65% scored their boss a 3 or higher. You go over here to the sabotagers, 92% scored their boss a 1 or a 2. What this means is, if you do an engagement survey, you can't move the score unless you go through getting leaders to be closer to their teams. You can't. You can't. And the reason why we waste $1.5 billion a year is because we do exit surveys, engagement surveys. HR is told, get a committee. The committee says, okay, people want more recognition. Let's have employee of the month, employee of the year, employee appreciation week, backpack at 5 years, clock at 10. And nobody cares because they want their boss to recognize them. And it goes on and on and on. And the joke line here is, when's the last time you heard a really good worker say, my boss treats me like dirt, but I'm holding on for employee appreciation week. I'll get a balloon and a hot dog and I'll be over the top. So that's how we blow all that money. So a couple of years ago, I started saying it's different. It's what do employees talk about over dinner, because that's when they're physically tired. They're fresh from their day and what's important to them, good and bad. They're emotionally unintelligent because they let loose. And whether they have dinner with their family or in a bar, what do they talk about? And you know what they talk about? Bosses, colleagues, and duties. When you say, how was your day, dear? Nobody says, my day was okay. I just wish we had pet insurance. It's not what employees think about. And sure enough, Forbes, which writes about our work a lot, said earlier this year that I said the greatest reason I was could ever do. Even those of us who love hard data must acknowledge this, which reinforces the old adage that people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. It's those bosses they talk about over dinner. So this is the 5 steps, and it's named Finnegan's arrow. It goes left to right. You see stay interviews in the middle. Think of that as the keystone. I'm going to talk more about stay interviews in a minute, but this is a concept I invented based on that postgraduate work, where it became very clear that for leaders to build trust with employees, they had to understand how the employees viewed work. And we didn't have a way to do that. We had a bunch of bosses having lunch with the same 2 people every day because they were close to 2 and not to the other 9. Or we had surveys and surveys and more surveys, but we didn't have leaders building trust by building relationships. We needed a formula. We needed a process. So the arrow says, convert turnover to dollars to wake up the executives, wake them up. Benchmarks are not enough. If HR says to the executive, our turnover is 28%, the benchmark is 30, high five. Our turnover is 28%, it costs 6.4 million, no high five. You've got to speak the language of executives, so we've invented a way to do that. Establish 2 goals for all turnover and new hire turnover, and hold leaders accountable. Then train them to do this stay interview thing, which I'll explain in detail. Ask them to forecast how long each employee will stay, and hold them accountable for achieving their retention goals and developing accurate forecasts. So when you look at this through another lens, it's just the way companies manage sales, because salespeople know the dollar value of a sale. They have sales goals, sales tools, sales forecasts. They're ultimately accountable for 2 numbers. Did you make your goals? Did you develop accurate forecasts? So this is a business-driven way to cut turnover that's not an HR-driven way. And I say that with respect to being a recovering HR director. So some details, here's some. Here's ideas of how much turnover costs per job. And we've got a whole list of jobs and how much it costs for turnover for them. You multiply this by the number of people who leave in a year, you've got your executive's attention. Goals: 2, all turnover, annual turnover, new hire turnover. I can confess to you, FedEx, which is a client, has a 30-day new hire turnover goal. Great Dane has a 60-day new hire turnover goal. White Castle has a 60-day new hire turnover goal. You've got to get people to stay and get out of the doom loop. Stay interviews, structured discussion. This is the definition that I wrote when I wrote the 2 books, actually. A supervisor conducts with each individual employee to learn the specific actions he must take to strengthen the employee's engagement, retention, blah, 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 blah. You get the idea. But the key here is It's a structured meeting to know what's important to your employee about work. And I'll give you just one clue why it matters so much, but there's many clues. If you look at this middle bullet where it says focus on individual employees, including top performers. Top performers outperform others by 4 to 1. It doesn't mean they work 4 times as many hours, but the productivity that comes out of the chute at the end of the day, at the end of the week, is 4 times more. You can't lose them. And if you're wise, you identify them and you know who they are. But any survey will obscure them because their data, because they're anonymous, is weighted as much as somebody you will fire tomorrow. We have got to do better than that. So 5 questions when you travel to work each day, what things you look forward to move the employee's mind into the here and now. 2, what are you learning here and what do you want to learn? If you're new, you have a list of things you want to learn. Been there 5 years, you might say, I'm not learning nothing. I just want to go home. And you say, okay. Or I want to learn something on board. We train leaders how to do that. 3 is the sneaky strong question of why do you stay here? This is the therapist coming out because employees can readily answer 4. When was the last time you thought about leaving our team? What prompted it? They know the answer to that one. And it doesn't say, have you ever? It says when. But why do you stay here is essential because most employees will say, I got to pay the bills. And the leaders of our company say, no, I got to pay the bills too, but I've thought about it. It's bigger than that. You come here every day and I'm grateful. What makes you come here? And at this point, you must make them discover within themselves why they stay and announce why they stay so they never forget it. And when you know the answer to number 1, when you travel to work each day, what things you look forward to, and number 3, why do you stay here? Now I know what's important to you and how to twist your job just a little to make it more attractive to you. 4, when's the last time you thought, believe me? Tell me on a 1 to 10 scale how important it is to you now. What's the single best thing I can do to fix it? 5, what can I do to make your experience at work better for you? You tell me, you coach me. You coach me to be a better boss for you. Those are 5 questions that when leaders are trained to listen, to probe, to take notes, when they become listening, probing, note-taking machines, they become trust builders to build relationships with their employees. Quiz question, what do employees ask for the most? More pay, development, work-life balance, better work processes, promotions. This might come as a surprise, although it should not. That overwhelmingly what our client companies tell us is, there's the clue. What do people talk about over dinner? Day-to-day work stuff. Why do we do this report? Nobody reads. The equipment's broke. This person just can't do their job and it bugs me. That's what employees are concerned about the most, and that's what builds up to make them stay or make them leave. So forecasting, easy. After the first day interview, check a box. Is this person red, likely to be gone in 6 months or less by your choice or theirs? Yellow, 6 to 12, or less than 6 months. Yellow, 6 to 12. Green, to be here in a year. Change at any time, but you're accountable for your colors. So if 5 employees leave and 4 are red or yellow, you're probably on top of things. If 5 leave and 4 are green, I'm not so sure. So the process is built to ensure leaders are building trust, are connecting, and we have data to verify that they do. And of course, as I told you, turnover goes down a lot. We also have invented ways to make sure new hires stay during the new hire goal period. And I wish I had time to go into great detail here about realistic job previews, doubling and tripling employee referrals, which we've invented ways to do, which is what the Forbes column was about yesterday, delivering retention, increasing job offers. And I'll give you just one example of a realistic job preview. At White Castle, high turnover in 90 days because applicants think, I've eaten in fast food, I know what the jobs are. We got permission from risk management to take applicants behind the counter. So now managers go through 7 stations with each candidate. Here's the griddle, getting close, hear it, whistle and make noise while it's pumping out heat and grease. See our apron splashed with yellow. William, hold up your arm, 5 black burn marks. Manager says every time, says, I've worked here for a blank number of years. Every day when I go home, I shower and I wash my hair. When I get up the next day, my hair smells like onions. Your hair will smell like onions for as long as you work here. It goes on and on. The loading dock, on and on, freezer. But last, the restrooms, put out the cones, paper all over the place. Here's the 7-page manual we use to teach you to scrub the restroom. District manager shows up once a week unannounced. He doesn't care if there's paper on the floor. He's going to see if you scrub the base of the toilet in the corners. Any questions? Then go through a series of questions to either hire that person, eliminate that person, or they eliminate themselves. So many tricks here. This is all that I do and my company does, is cut employee turnover. Throughout the pandemic, just kept cutting it. Now keep cutting it by these degrees. And I will say to any of you who, if you want to learn more about what we do, here's 2 white papers I've written that are my favorites. The first is how to convert turnover and engagement to dollars. So how do you really do that? So we've invented a methodology for both. Second is, how do you connect stay interviews, turnover, and engagement? How does that really work? And on the bottom, you can see, please text first name, last name, email address to that number. But if you want to send a note to me about anything, do it. If there's more information I can help you with, if you want me to talk to your executives, do it. I'll be glad to talk with you. Okay, Jennifer, I've raced. I'm out of time. I hope this has been helpful. What questions do we have?
Yeah, thank you, Dick. Wow, you were right. Chocked full of good advice, and thank you for generously sharing these 2 white papers with our audience. That's exceptional. I think there's so much here that people probably want to go back and listen again, which is great. We'll send the video out tomorrow or by the end of this week, so people have that opportunity. Some questions. How often do you recommend conducting the stay interview?
Yeah, great question. Twice in the new hire goal period and once a year after. So our clients start and do everybody. We suggest the CEO or plant manager go first and cascade down, and then everybody a year later, or more frequently if they want. But you got to get 2 done with new hires in the new hire goal period. You have to stop the doom loop.
Okay, great. And then how do you ensure that the employees are being honest, that they're not intimidated during this process?
You know, we can't, but something happens, and I think a lot of it is the training. We practice and practice skills that a lot of first-line supervisors have never even thought about. How do you listen? How do you take notes? How do you pause? How do you probe based on what you heard? And the better they get, the more their employees become open to them. And somehow turnover is going down 30, 40, 50%. So I think we're getting through.
Great. When you do identify through the interviews that there's a trust issue, is part of your service to offer coaching or counseling or suggestions to those leaders about how they can better build relationships with their employees?
You know, we're not going to know specifically if there's a trust issue. We're going to know if they can't make their goals and if the people are leaving are the greens. Those are our 2 signs. And then we work with the executives to coach them.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all of this. I was remiss in sharing that Dick is a very popular speaker. So he can come to your company and share this information. He was sharing with us before we got on the call that Forbes did call him yesterday. His phone's ringing off the hook right now, and he's traveling for the next several weeks because it's such a hot topic. So I had the pleasure of being introduced to Dick through Diane Goodman, who has been in the meetings and industry for a long time and is a speaker manager now. She suggested her values and mine align, and that we wanted to use these brain breaks as a service and providing information that would be very helpful. So given the employment crisis that everyone's going through right now, she had no hesitation and saying that it was time for us to share Dick and his speaking with you, so his presentation. So Diane, thank you. I will share both Diane's information and Dick's information in the follow-up email that I send. And we're going to continue this discussion. The feedback we got was that this is such a hot topic. Our next 2 brain breaks in November and December are going to be with a woman named Sarah Sladek. She's the CEO of a company called XYZ University. I'm going to read a little bit. The XYZ University is a future-focused management consulting firm, which specializes in generational studies. So she's done a tremendous amount of research on how the upcoming Gen Z is affecting hiring, retention, all of these topics we've touched on. So her first presentation in November is going to be to share some trends that she's learned, again, about employment and retention trends. She'll share some best practices of incorporating a futuristic mindset into your organization. And then in December, she's going to go into a little bit more in depth on how to address the trends and how to be proactive in your company with hiring the younger generation. So I hope this is useful. We thank you so much for spending 30 minutes of your precious time with us today. And again, a huge thanks to Diane and Dick. We wish you the best. I'm sure you're going to be very, very busy for a long time until this all settles out. So thank you. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you, everybody. Be well.
Bye.